While Logan travels through time in an attempt to save Charles Xavier from Omega Red, is a new threat brewing on Krakoa? Well, let's hop into the pages of X Deaths of Wolverine and find out together, shall we? Okay then, so like I explained at the beginning, X Lives of Wolverine is all about Logan quantum leaping through time to try and save Xavier before he can get assassinated by Omega Red and change the future. X Deaths of Wolverine seems to flip the script completely and turns out to be a story all about Moira McTaggart, the now depowered and exiled former secret power behind Krakoa. You'll remember at the end of Inferno, Moira had been kidnapped by Destiny and Mystique, but before she could be executed, she was saved by Cypher, who sent her through a portal. That portal just so happens to take Moira back to her old ancestral home of Scotland. Yes, that's right, it doesn't matter how far Moira gets from this place, she always ends up coming back. Moira is positively terrified for her life. Yes, Doug and the council may have managed to stop Mystique from killing her that day, but there's no promise that she won't come back to try and do it again. In fact, she almost certainly will. This is Mystique we're talking about, after all. She was never exactly huge on following the rules before she joined Krakoa, and now that she's on the council, that hasn't changed much either. Plus, she can look like anyone, meaning she could kill Moira at any time, anywhere. Here's the thing though, if Mystique wants the honor of killing Moira, she's going to have to hurry, because get this, she's actually sick, and because she's not a mutant anymore, the next time she dies, it will be for real and forever. Speaking of illness, Moira isn't the only one who's not feeling great right now. Black Tom Cassidy, using his connection to the island of Krakoa, feels some very strange ecological phenomenons. When Tom goes to investigate these problems that only he can feel, he ends up stumbling upon some manner of giant tumor growing out of Krakoa. Wait a minute, that's no tumor, that's an egg! Later we see a very familiar silhouette step out of the egg and stab poor Tom Cassidy with a pair of claws that look very similar to Warlock tech. But more on that later. From there we transition on over to New York, where Moira is actually getting a professional medical opinion from none other than Dr. Jane Foster. Yeah, Valkyrie, how about that? Apparently Moira and Jane are actually old friends, which in and of itself is cool, but also begs about a million questions. Shouldn't Jane be asking why she hasn't seen her in so long? Don't regular people think Moira died on Necronotia? Those will all have to be questions that are answered later. Moira has stage 4 cancer right now, and the disease has metastasized in her blood. She's going to die very soon, and it seems that the only thing that may even be able to slow down her condition is, ironically enough, Krakoan petals. Which, hey, points for continuity. We know Krakoan petals were actually able to help Agent Jeff Bannister's daughter recover from her cancer. The only problem for Moira is the waiting list on those petals is incredibly long. Jane, being a good friend, tries to be sympathetic to Moira. After all, she knows exactly what it's like living with cancer, but this actually sweet moment ends up getting cut short by Mystique making another attempt on Moira's life. Jane, in her role as Valkyrie, manages to cover Moira's escape, though honestly, considering what happens next, maybe it would have been more humane for Mystique just to kill her. You see, a picture of Moira ends up getting snapped by the CIA's X-Desk. Again, nice bit of continuity for X-Force and the Wolverine book if you've been reading them. Agent Ramirez notes that Moira hasn't been seen publicly for many years now since the founding of Krakoa, which probably means something very important. She's either an expat or a former prisoner and someone that they hope they can turn. So if you're playing along at home right now, that's one mutant that wants Moira dead, a whole government agency that wants her as a prisoner, and one horrifying disease slowly eating her up from the inside out. A regular person would probably give up hope right about now, but Moira is not a regular person. She says if she's learned nothing from her many multiple lives, it's that death just does not seem to agree with her. Moira attempts to go to ground by changing her appearance and buying some new clothes. Hey, look, apparently that Warlock arm is good for a lot more than just tracking her whereabouts. She thought she was being so careful, but unfortunately the CIA's X-Desk already has eyes on her, which means Moira is forced to hide out in the mall for a little bit. We actually get an extended little commercial for a brand new tech company that, get this, just so happens to be experimenting with cybernetic enhancements for the human body as well as AIs. Oh boy, there's something you know is going to be important later. Moira gets cornered by some G-men and ends up having to fight her way out. Either she's much better than we ever gave her credit for, powers or not, or the X-Desk just isn't that good. Take your pick. And yes, I know Moira lived multiple lives and has multiple generations worth of training inside her head, but we've never exactly seen her use any of those abilities until right now. Also, despite essentially not existing in the world for many years now, Moira has lots of resources and apparently a full bank account. And you know, sometimes I wish I could just disappear and go for an international walkabout sometimes. Honestly, I'd just like to go for a walkabout more. Now, you might be asking yourself, where exactly do all of these events take place with the main Wolverine story? Well, as we quickly peek back in on Krakoa, Xavier and Jean Grey are still quantum leaping Logan's mind. Jean gets distracted though when she ends up hearing thoughts that sound very familiar to her, thoughts belonging to, well, Wolverine, but that's impossible. He's right here right now, isn't he? As the comic comes to a close, we are introduced to a brand new futuristic Wolverine complete with Warlock-esque tech claws. Yeah, you know what? For what it's worth, they're already cooler than hot claws, but you know what? This is just totally what happens when you start messing around with time and space, you silly mutants. And so that was X Deaths of Wolverine issue number 1, and while I have said that X Lives of Wolverine was enjoyable if ultimately playing it safe, this issue did not. I honestly assumed this whole event thing was just going to be a fun little side story featuring Wolverine, but no, apparently it is actually the next important chapter in the history of Krakoa and Moira. I honestly assumed they were just going to be putting the Moira stuff away and move on, maybe not like it didn't happen, but at least not making it the crux of the story. Hell, if anything, this really does feel like an organic continuation, because honestly, yeah, why would Mystique stop trying to kill Moira after she already moved heaven and earth to do so? Furthermore, why would Moira be so willing to give up her stranglehold on Krakoa and mutantkind when she had worked so hard in all of her multiple lives? The wild card in all of this is, of course, Wolverine himself and whatever his time travel mission clearly ends up doing to him at some point. Furthermore, I didn't mention this in the previous video, but we know Omega Sentinel, the real villain of mutantkind in Krakoa, also time traveled pretty much in the same way Wolverine is doing right now, and you figure that's gotta cross over at some point, right? Overall, I'd give this issue a well-deserved 8 out of 10. I am more invested in this story than I was before, and I really want to see how it all shakes out.
Hey there everyone, it's your old pal Cave Jewel, and if you're seeing me right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, which I am very appreciative of. It really helps drive engagement and retention and all that other good YouTube stuff. So does liking and commenting. Wink wink. If you like my content too, you should check out my Patreon page. We just redid all the tiers, so there's a ton of great rewards. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, and well, it would just really help me out. It's never expected, but always appreciated. So until next time everyone, I've been Cape Joel, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.